Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to whatever this is for today, February 6th, 2025. Hello, my name's Tristan. I am the host of the YouTube channel Step Back and also the podcast host of It's Probably Not Aliens, or one of the two podcast hosts of It's Probably Not Aliens. And I am on vacation right now. I had my vacation time did not roll over, so I decided that I needed to use it all up. I had like a week and change, and so I took a vacation and waited for time to pass, and decide to get a bunch of stuff done. And one of the things I wanted to do, and I haven't been able to do in a long time, is a stream where I do it during the day so that the Europeans can actually show up, because, normally I'd be at the office right now. So here I am. It's been a pretty wild ride, and also I'm happy to see people in. So yeah. That's the biggest thing. If you're interested in seeing more of these streams, there was a conversation that happened about a week ago, a couple days ago, with my partner, where she pointed out that maybe I should put my efforts into doing more streaming and turning that streaming into video content as a bigger investment, because the process of making videos the way that I used to is just becoming less and less doable with my schedule. If you want to support the project that I'm working on, the places that you can go are by subscribing here on YouTube and liking and thumbing up and sharing and stuff. But if you want to support with financial stuff, there is patreon.com/stepbackhistory. It's still going. You still get early access to stuff. You still get ad-free videos when they come out. And yeah. And I also have I think that's the biggest one. But yeah. Right now I'm working on a video on Hindutva. And yeah, it's been interesting to do. It's a fascinating movement, but trying to research it has been a real pain in the behind, because it's not a super well understood thing, or it's not a super well researched thing in English, that's for sure. Okay, and yeah, I think that the best thing that we can start is we're in some bleak goddamn times, and so as we always do on this stream, because we are a clearly anti-doomer action type of community here. So we usually try to start with wins, successes, things that have been wins for you in the last month and change and such. So try to celebrate where celebration still clings, and that'll give us the power to realize that good things can happen. Good things do happen. Do not lose sight of that, and that we are able to do hard, rough things that then we can, rally to deal with the things that aren't so good. So please, in the chat, let me know what kind of stuff that you've been up, what kind of wins you've had from the last month or so, or just in general if it's your first time here. And yeah, I can start with my own personal stuff. It's been quite a good week for me. This vacation was very necessary. I had a very, very, very busy couple of weeks at work, where I was, really on the express train to Burnout City. And I was happy to be in a situation where I can take some time off work and I don't have to go back to work until next Wednesday. My last video, the one that came out on my birthday, I believe is the last one I had that came out, is a very successful video. It was my most successful video of my last 10. It was 1 of 10. So that was good news. People seem to like it. It was a sign that, yeah, maybe I should have just hired an editor. If I hired an editor, my life would have been... This would have been a lot more doable, but I could only have hired an editor because of the money that I was making through no longer doing YouTube full-time. So, you know, ups and downs. Yeah. And other successes, other wins that I have. One of the things I did this week. Oh, yeah, I got two wins this week. One is kind of major, actually, like for a personal one. Like a big deal for Tristan specifically. And then the other one is a little bit more minor. So yesterday I went to the eye doctor. Went to the eye doctor for the first time in probably like 5 years or 4 years. And found that my prescription is actually has changed for the better. So my eyes are actually getting better than they were last time. And I went shopping there for new glasses because this is the first time I've had insurance that covers glasses. So I got to buy new glasses and I got to try a bunch on, and it was the first time that I was kind of like really into that, because most of the time I spent the time just being like, you know, just dreading the like, you know, the fear of how much it's going to cost me, and trying to just buy the cheapest glasses that I can get away with. But I bought a pair that I genuinely loved. Like when I put them on, it was the first time that I put on a pair of glasses and it really sparked joy. And so I bought those. I always had an issue because I have, you know, I have a fat head, I have a really thick brow, and I have beady little eyes, which I'm basically a caveman who wears clothes. And I needed to find glasses that would, like, you know, work with that. And I found a pair that I like. When I saw it, I was like, ooh, it's like really, really, really good. And the closest that I can think of as like where I saw glasses similar to this before on somebody, and this is probably like the best, you know, connection that I can probably give to you guys, so you guys can understand what they look like, is that fellow person with a fat head, thick brow, and tiny beady little eyes is Dave Bautista. And in the movie Blade Runner I wanted to say 2048, but I think that's like the puzzle game. But in Blade Runner, Dave Bautista wears a pair of glasses, and I've always thought they looked really good, so I bought something like that. So I'm pretty excited for that. And that was my small one. My big one is that on Tuesday, I got my G2. Which anybody who doesn't live in Ontario, that's going to mean literally nothing to you. But it was... The G2 is the driver's license test. It's the road test part of getting a driver's license. Canada, or Ontario, has a 3-step driver's license process, which they call the G1, the G2, and the G. When you write the written test, you get the G1, where you can drive with another person. After the G2, which is the road test, you can do pretty much everything, except you can't have any alcohol in your system. And if you're like under a certain age, you have some like other restrictions, but I'm too old for all those things. And then when you get your full G, which you have to do like a year after you get your G2, just to sort of solidify that you have, like, you know, learned how to drive properly, and they take you on the highway and stuff like that, then you get your alcohol tolerance and everything, and you basically just have a license that you just renew every few years. So, yeah, I got my G2, which was, like, so there's a couple of reasons why this was, like, a really big deal for me. One, I get really bad test anxiety, and even though, like, the test didn't cost me any money, if I failed, all I would need to do is take it again. And the test wasn't going to be particularly hard because it was in lieu of like going to driver's school or anything like that. All I did is just drive. Like we would just do like regular stuff, getting around town with our car and just drive places. And I did that, so I got a lot of practice just sort of moving around, being used to stuff. And I also really, really like the car that I own right now, so I'm like, happy to do it, and I like doing it. So I got to drive in the car that I really like. I got to take a test, but I didn't have a very high chance. But still, my body was very much convinced that I was going to be shot in the head if I failed. So I was just completely like, I was just cortisol the person the entire test. And the other thing too, and because of like that kind of test anxiety thing, I had like tried doing my G2 a bunch of times when I was like a teenager, like when I was like 17. So like 19. Let me just do the math here. 17. So that's 19 years ago. Fuck. Okay. So 19 years ago, when I was doing my G2 as a teenager, I failed it like 5 times and then just gave up instead of finishing it. So I have kind of had the G2 test dangling over my head for more than half of my life as like this thing that I'm not capable of doing, that I failed a bunch of times, that I was too nervous and I was not good at, and then passing the test was like a significant like like you can imagine like sitting around with something like a thing that you failed at doing for 19 years and then passing it was like a big deal. It felt like a major sort of thing looming over me was actually like freed, and it was a huge milestone. And so yeah, it felt really, really good, I gotta say. And now the first time that I drove solo, because now I can drive solo for the first time in my life. And I'm realizing this because I'm like 36. This is a long time, and some stuff that I had never really done like before. First time I'd ever driven alone. First time I'd ever been in the car by myself. Right, like first time I'd been like I had never been in a car by myself driving around, and so it was quite a nice experience, or quite a novel experience. And I did my first solo drive was to go to the library, which is very on brand, to volunteer, which is very on brand, to play Dungeons and Dragons or run a Dungeons and Dragons game, which is also ridiculously on brand. So that was my first drive, and now I've gone and picked up my son from daycare, and I'm looking forward to doing things like going grocery shopping and like all of the sort of things that used to be massive pains in the ass. I'm now able to do really easily. So, and I know, and I just want to like nip in the bud before we go. Like I know car bad, train good, and I appreciate that and I understand. This was not the reason why I'm doing my my driver's license at the age of 36 is because I wanted very hard to get through life without needing to own or operate cars. I've always been pro public transit, pro pedestrian, and I still am. I still am working very, very hard to build the habits that like driving to me will always be a thing that you have to. I'm going to have to make the case why I can't walk or take the bus. I'm never going to be like in a situation where it's like, where like, I'm just going to drive to everything. But I'm going to get to a situation where I'm like, is this a thing that makes more sense to drive to, or is it a thing that makes more sense to take the bus or walk? Because like, that going to work every day makes way more sense to walk. I live a 45-minute walk from my house. It is downtown where parking costs $7 a day, and it is my like daily exercise. So like, I am 100% just on board with that. It's things like, picking up my son from daycare, dropping off my wife at her job, grocery shopping, those kinds of activities are going to be the things that I use it for. Second of all, it's just because I live in, like, I feel like people know about the, like, how inaccessible Canada or like my city is for pedestrians and public transit, because Jason Slaughter, the person who runs was not City Beautiful. What is Jason Slaughter's? Not Just Bikes. Jason of Not Just Bikes is from London and very regularly uses London as a example of how not to do urban design that is not car centric. And even so, I live in one of the most like pedestrian friendly parts of the city, and even so, like, for me to go to the grocery store would be it'd be like a 60-minute round trip walk, and I would, have to carry everything home with me. So just as an example. And so I'm very happy to do that. And the other thing that's also good, and I would say, is that if, with all the tariff talks, if Canada, like the car that I have is also very, very, environmentally sound of a choice. It's an electric car. It is a used electric car, so I didn't buy it new. It is... the electricity mix where I live is entirely either hydroelectric or nuclear, which means that the electricity that I get for charging my car is from entirely green sources. And I think that all those things show that, like, it's a good choice. And in the wake of, like, if those tariffs that were threatened to us ever actually happen, then gas will probably get more expensive, but electricity will probably get cheaper. And so it'll be a net benefit for me, I think. So that's the general gist of why I'm excited. I'm just filling out time to give you guys some times to write your wins. Why don't we go look at your wins? So let's let me just start scrolling down. I see that Matt, Mr. Kevlar Ninja's here. Carrie Glenn's here saying good morning. Good morning. Glitch42, you turned off some more news to be here. Haha, take that, Cody and Katie. Men Meth. Speaking as American, I just want to say sorry everyone. We messed up again. Hey, I'm the Canadian. We're the ones who are supposed to be saying sorry for everything. Alright, Med and Meth. You participated in a chili contest at work, which was fun. That does sound fun. Ooh. Love some chili. Want some right now. I would like to make a chili right now. I'm like right now hankering for like a Chipotle forward chili. Nice and smoky and stuff. Oof. Be really good on a day like today. That's so cool. I wish I was confident enough in something that I cooked that I could make chili. I have a at work for like potlucks and stuff like that. I am now famous. I now make a famously good sourdough bread, and I make a famously good hummus, which is I'm very proud of, because my office is a very multicultural place. Like I literally work in a nonprofit that serves immigrants, and so like most of the people who are employed there are also immigrants, and so the fact that I can make like serviceable hummus for like the like half dozen Arabs that work there makes me very proud of my ability to do things. Unfortunately, the last potluck we did was like last week, and in making the hummus, I hummused too close to the sun, and I think I might have destroyed our food processor. We'll see. The rebooting Buffy and Civ 7's coming out. That is, yeah. I'll say this. And this will be like one of my more spicy takes, I think. Civ 7 I have zero interest in playing. I played Civ 5 for a while, and immediately when I found out about Paradox Games, I completely abandoned the Civilization series. Now the closest thing I played to Civilization is Age of Wonders, which is sort of like fantasy Civilization, and I enjoyed that a lot more. All right. Glitch 42. Our Trump is in an area that votes for Trump 2-1. We feed our poor once a quarter with a semi-full food to support a gay pause nonprofit in our basement. Cool. I mean, not the Trump voting Trump 2-1 thing, but the fact that you feed people, that's a good thing to do. Let's see. I had the most Canadian moment the other day. I saw a car that had slid off the road, so I stopped to help push their car back on the road. Pretty soon we had 5 people of varying skin colors and ages helping. Yeah, like, that is the Canadian thing. And this is like one of those things that, like, I was talking about a little ways back that, like, there was a time when I was growing up where we were kind of still living in, like, the Trudeau nation building project of the 1960s. And there was, like, because one of the things is, like, in the wake of, like, us, throwing out all of the American alcohol and, like, us sort of, like, Canada going through this, like, moment of, like, buy Canadian, stop buying American stuff. I was saying that the, like, and only Canadians will really understand this part, but I was saying that, like, Molson should start playing, without any alterations, the My Name is Joe commercials. Or make a modern version of the My Name is Joe commercial. And when and then I rewatched the sort of My Name is Joe and I Am Canadian commercial, I was thinking about how much it talks about how, like, the things that were, like, of, like, patriotic national pride in Canada back in, like, 1999 or whenever it came out was, like, about embracing our diversity and about, like, like, diversity, not assimilation, and, peacekeeping, not policing, and, like, all those things. And I was like, shit, remember when that was what Canada, like, prided itself on? Man, I wish we were more like that, when I was a kid, like, Canada was, like, our biggest things were that we were peacekeepers and that we were, that we embraced the fact that we were a multicultural society and that we embraced people of different backgrounds and different, like, lifestyles. Would be good. That's a very heartwarming story, Carrie. Thank you for sharing. Actually, yeah, so anyone doesn't know, this winter has been absolutely fucking brutal for, like, most of Canada this year. And, I say that like just this morning, everything where in my neighborhood is encased in ice. It's awful. Because we had, like, a freezing rain situation overnight. And one of the things is that actually my first solo drive to the library, I was driving up this street, and the thing about London that is really annoying is that there are 2 railroad lines that go right through the center of the city. Some of them have like, the roads have, like, like, tunnels that go underneath them. Some do not, and so it's, like, a regular part of being a Londoner to have to stop at the rail tracks for 20 minutes waiting for the rail to pass. So much so, one of them passes right through the middle of downtown, like the middle of, like, the sort of, like, like, nightlife district, And there used to be a burrito shop that was right by the railroad tracks, and they had a special, which is that whenever the train had, like, blocked the road, you could come in and get a burrito for, like really cheap. And it's like fun things like that. But I was driving to go to the library, which involved going under one of these underpasses, and the entire street was blocked off because a Pepsi truck had, like, I don't know what had happened, but it had gotten stuck in a snowbank, but it had gotten stuck in a way where it was turning, and so it's, like, its payload blocked the entire 4-lane street. Like, this is, like, one of the most major streets in the city. And had 4 lanes of traffic blocked off with its like this is not like this is like an 18-wheeler, so like you could do that. And so, and it was like right at the entrance to this underpass. So I had to like go kind of down into the underpass and do like a weird U-turn to come back up and then go down another way, which was just wild. Yeah, the roads are nasty right now. Aren't we all just cave people in clothes ultimately? Yeah, I have a feeling that I look particularly like a caveman. Maybe it isn't coming across because the thing sort of flattens my face a little bit, but I have a very big head. I have a very thick brow. Like, this doesn't really come across, but I like have like a very thick, like, brow here. And I also have beady little eyes, which means that I feel like I look, and because I have a French background, and I know that French people have a lot of, French and Spanish people have a lot of like, what's it called? Oh my god, why is the word escaping me? Like, the ancient humanoid cousins that interbred with us. Why am I losing it right now? Gosh, I'm trying to remember. Wow. Neanderthal. So like I know that French people and Spanish people have a lot of Neanderthal DNA, and so I was just like, maybe I just like got all the Neanderthal genes in my skull because I have like this thick skull with like a brow, like a really heavy brow and like tiny little eyes. I don't know. Win. Zavi Smith played in a pirate TTRPG tournament and won a pirate flag. Me and my friend played a Haitian revolutionary and a radical Quaker going around freeing slaves. Now that fucking rules. I want to know what a pirate TTRPG tournament is. How do you win at that? That sounds... I need to know. So what you're saying is you want to play Drax the Destroyer? Maybe. Need to work out for that one a bit. Carrie starts her vacation next week. Going kayaking in Chile with one of the top whitewater kayakers in the world. Literally a Red Bull sponsored athlete. That's pretty sweet. That'd be awesome. That's so cool. What? It's free, Canada? Oh, you're talking about my G2 test? It's free, I think, the first time. I think you have to pay if you fail. You have to pay, like, for subsequent takes. Luckily, I did it the first time. The second time, because like what happened was my license expired, because you have, when you get your license in Ontario, you have then 5 years to finish the full G test. So the way it works is like you write your G1, it's a written test, and once you get your G1 license, it will expire in 5 years, and if you don't finish your G2 and your G test, you'll have to start the process all over again. And the G1 to G2 has to be a minimum of 1 year, and I think it can be reduced to 9 months if you go to driver's school. And then the time between the G2 and the G it has to be 12 months after you got your G2 to get your G. And so, and luckily, the second time when I wrote the test, the second time I did the written test, I got a what's it called? That I had to pay money for. I had to pay like $80 or something like that, which I think was mostly for the license. And then I they told me because it was my second time, I didn't have to wait the like requisite 9 months. I still ended up doing so. I ended up waiting like a year and change actually, because I got it in like June of 2023, but I didn't end up writing it until, the G2 until like, just this week, because laziness is one of them, but the other is that my car that I had when I was practicing died, and I had to get a new one, and I didn't get a new one until December of 2024. So for like most of 2024, I didn't own a car. My car was dead. We had to turn it into a cube. So that sucks. But yeah, so I think I can still write. I still think I have to wait to finish the G for a year because the G2 was I never got it the first time around, so I think I have to do the waiting. That's fine. I have until 2028 to finish it, and I have this now. So 2026 I can write the G test and go from there. Yeah. All right, Matt wins. Last week you had several days straight getting all your daily tasks finished in a reasonable time frame. Very good. You did your first proper round of volunteering for our local autism charity. Also very, very cool. Also, Matt, I'll mention, because I know you're from this area, you're from the area, my car that I bought is from Orleans. It actually, like, somebody had to deliver it to our house from Orleans, Ontario, which is right close to Ottawa, where you're from. And it's got a very fun thing because it's from Longueuil originally, which is sort of like a French suburb of Montreal. The thing that I still have to work out I haven't had a good solution yet, is that in Quebec, front license plates are not required, and so the front license, but they are in Ontario. So the front license plate of my car right now is just like, kind of like where you'd put your parking pass or something like that, like in between the window and the dashboard. So I need to I think I need to have to buy some kind of bracket mount or something like that to be able to put my front license plate on the front of my car. And then on top of that, especially because I have the special G license plate, which is this thing in Ontario where if you have a green vehicle, you can drive in the high occupancy lanes without having extra people in it. And I think there might be some other stuff too, but I have the sort of special green license plate and everything. Wasn't a thing that I wanted to do. I really didn't want to show off how electric my car is, but it comes with special licenses and it's got electric written on the back and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh geez. Matt now has a new set of wireless headphones bought with a gift card your mom got you as a birthday gift, and they were really nice. Yeah. I bought these when I did my job interview at the job that I have now. And they're very, very nice. New headphones are... investing in good headphones is one of the things that people don't give a lot of attention to, but it's one of the things that can buying good headphones can really improve your quality of life, especially the ones you use to go around with. And I love these ones. You went to the Ottawa Public Library to get a proper library card again and got a giddy thrill from finding anarchist books in the library blocks away from Parliament Hill. Had very nice commutes on OC Transpo this week where everyone was very nice and chill despite it being rush hour half the time. Also, I got to sit between two cute girls at one point, which was very nice, not gonna lie. Oh man, you had a pretty good run of things. 1917, Vampire Tristan confirmed he's a Dracula. Yeah. Did I get the numbers mixed up? Because I was I wrote the test when I was 17, and then that was 19 years ago. Huh. How's the socio-political kulaks of the left and right nowadays with Abrahamic 3? I do not know. Kukols? I don't know. Last week I made a okay, I am let's see if I can finish off. Matt has one more message. Tomorrow night you're going to be screening a Inuit and other polar indigenous peoples movie in a outdoor screening room made out of snow, which should be cool. That is pretty cool. That is actually really cool. Yeah, do that. That sounds fun. All right. Ambrose, last week you made a concrete plan for losing your... Wait, okay. Last week you made a concrete plan for losing your transgender healthcare. Oh, okay. You made a plan for handling what's going to happen because it's going to be taken away. That is bittersweet, obviously. Worked on a D&D costume. Simon from the movie. Nice. For your 6-year-old, and checked on all of your Q family and friends. Oh, by Q you mean your queer family and friends. For a second, I was like, you mean like your QAnon family and friends? I was like, oh, but that makes sense. Good job. You're handling this rather well, or at least you're handling it as well as you can be, which is good. I think that one of the first step towards losing everything is thinking that everything just will happen to you and that you have no agency to fight back and resist. Grocery shopping in Chicago was the only time I wish I had a car. Yeah, man, when I lived in Toronto, there was literally a grocery store on the ground floor of the building I was in, and I was so spoiled. Holy moly. And then there was a time where I lived downtown in London, and that was just the worst because there was no grocery store and no access to anything. The worst of both worlds. I love one of the most bike-friendly cities in Canada. I still need a car for people to get the people to the places. Yeah. It's not a Tesla, so it won't blow up or try to eat your son or something. Yeah, it's not a Tesla. I do not own a Tesla. I own an Ioniq. Yeah, it's a Hyundai. I would never have bought a Tesla. It's not like it would not be a wise investment. They have even if Elon Musk aside, they have a terrible safety rating. And if Canada was sensible, we'd be banning Teslas from the country. We should be opening the door to those $12,000 electric cars from China and closing the door to Elon Musk's shitmobiles. We even there's one guy who owns a Cybertruck in London, and he's nobody knows who he is, but he's notorious, infamous, because people just make fun of him, and everyone thinks he's a dipshit. And some people are like, the London Cybertruck guy. 1 year of HRT as of yesterday. Congratulations, Chemical Tree. Well done. Now that is a milestone worth celebrating. All the best to you and your journey. If the trade war goes worse, we all know Canada would do worse because USA food production can sustain while others can't stay the same. Yeah, I have... At some point, we probably have to get to the meat and potatoes of everything, but yeah, this is the Canada thing about for anyone who isn't aware, because I know that there was last weekend there was 8 insane things happening at the same time. That, as far as I could tell, Trump tried to do a 25% blanket tariff on Canadian goods, except for oil, in which it would be 10%. Then over the weekend, as markets in response around the world, because this, the Wall Street was closed for the weekend, but other places were open, and as they were all just sort of collapsing, huge, because this was markets like stability, and what they don't like is one of the most powerful economies on earth just openly starting shit with both of its closest trading partners and neighbors over something that appears to be completely made up. And Canada rallied like no other, and basically on Monday, as Wall Street started to go down in flames, Trump and President Sheinbaum worked out a deal, and Trump and Trudeau worked out a deal, and both of those deals were things that they had already agreed to. As far as I know, the only thing that Trump actually got out of this exchange was that Canada had to name a fentanyl czar, which is weird. We've never had czars before. And on top of that, Canada, if you were to net the amount of import-export of fentanyl between Canada and the United States, it would be negative. So few fentanyl crosses the border from Canada into the US, but so much fentanyl crosses the border from the US into Canada. And this like fentanyl czar position is just a complete joke. And then and I guess he got the, like these programs that everyone was doing. People were kind of, they were kind of I guess slower on moving forward with them than they wanted. With this deal that they made with Biden, so they were like, I guess their plans maybe got accelerated a little bit, but who knows. And also the trade thing was only like for like, it's only a stay of 30 days. But the whole thing is like people were really trying to game out like which is going to hurt more in like, if Canada does its retaliatory 25% tariffs on American goods and America does its 25% tariff on Canadian goods, who loses out in that? And when you look at the numbers and like the sort of like things that are being moved over, the things that the tariffs on the things that are tariffs on Canadian goods in Canada means that a lot of things that would be profitable to sell to America would be not profitable, or at least not as profitable anymore. And a lot of that stuff in like a lot of stuff that Canada trades with the United States is oil, lumber, minerals, uranium, car parts, things like that, because our auto manufacturing industry is really, really weird in North America. Because all the factory work that used to be in like Detroit and stuff like that is now in Ontario, because you don't have to pay for health insurance for factory workers in Ontario. But like some parts of the manufacturing process are still done in the United States. So it's like this like weird back and forth thing, because our economies are so tightly wound because we've had 30 years of free trade that are all of a sudden being upended. Anyways, different story. So the things that we trade are, and potash, which is crucial in making fertilizer for American farming. America doesn't have, America needs all of that stuff to make its economy function. And Canada, while we would definitely take a cut, we would take a pay cut from it, all of that stuff is stuff that that Canada could feasibly sell on the global market fairly easily. Like China could buy our wood, would happily take our wood, our oil, our stuff. The harder one would be electricity. We export a lot of electricity to the United States, but there are other ways that we could handle that. While what we import from the United States is like a little bit like produce, consumer goods, consumer electronics, clothes. America isn't really an export economy. Canada would still be hit really hard, but it would be mostly hit by our inability to sell things to American consumers. But as far as us not getting critical stuff, there's not a lot of stuff that we get from the US that is particularly essential. The only one that I can think of that is a big deal is that while Canada is a producer of crude oil, we're not a producer of finished petroleum products like gasoline or things like that, because the way that it works is that Canadian oil goes on to oil pipelines that then go down to the what's it called, the Gulf of Mexico, and are then refined down in Texas and stuff, and then gets shipped back up to Canada to sell to sell as gasoline and stuff for Canadian cars and vehicles and stuff, because refining requires some pretty sophisticated machinery. And America had America is a massive oil importer because it consumes just so much petroleum. And so here's the here to explain this thing. I'm just going to give a general rundown of how oil and gas works and international trade and everything like that, because this is the Step Back stream and that's the kind of shit you guys love. So when oil comes out of the ground in its various ways, it is of varying different types of qualities, different levels of impurities. I'm sure you've maybe heard sweet versus sour oil, but also various different, for example, Canadian oil is produced by removing what's called oil sand or tar sand, which is sort of like bitumen. and converting that into crude using water and chemistry that I don't understand. But then it will go down, but then it needs to go to a refinery. And the whole thing is that like oil of different levels of quality require different kinds of refineries. The more pure and high quality the oil is, the more easy it is to refine. And America, domestic oil production in America, as much as it is, because it's rather limited, and it's definitely not enough to serve, like to export or to even serve and cover American needs. American oil is very, very good. It's very high quality. Like the Texas stuff is like the best oil that you can get. It's the kind of shit you get in like Saudi Arabia and Russia and stuff like that. Like the sweetest of stuff that requires very little, very cheap processing. But a lot of the oil produced in other parts of the world are very low, low quality. Like the stuff out of Venezuela and stuff like that is very very lots of contaminants, lots of like impurities and stuff like that. But because very impure crude requires more expensive refining, a sort of system got set up where Americans, because they have the money to do so, like it's not that profitable to drill oil out of the ground in America because the labor involved is too expensive. But it's refined. Like America has the sort of technology and engineering and resources to have very high quality refining refineries. And so what happens is that like countries that have cheaper sort of refineries, they actually buy the high quality American crude so that they can refine it into gasoline in their countries for a cheaper price. And then America buys the sort of like more impure heavy stuff and does all of the sort of funky chemistry and stuff to make gasoline for American consumers. And that's why like they buy like Canadian oil is such a in-depth part of the American consumption, because Canadian oil is super shit quality. It is sometimes described as the oil version of of injecting drugs between your toes because you've run out of places where you have veins to inject drugs. It's really bad stuff. That means that America is dependent on exporting its good oil and importing its shit oil, and to fix that would require them building new refineries that they haven't done in ages. And nobody wants to invest in that kind of shit anymore because every major investor realizes that, petrol is not a thing with a future. It's like in a state of managed decline. And so building new oil refineries, unless you're like fucking Saudi Aramco or something like that, is like a really, really stupid use of our time. So, but America would definitely miss out quite a bit because the amount that Canada consumes domestically is fairly small in comparison to the United States. So that would definitely have hurt them more. And the wood for their for their construction would have gone away. That would have been rough. The sort of electricity for states, especially the northern sort of Midwestern states, would have been really fucked. So there's a lot of places where it would have been real bad for the United States. It would have been bad for both of us. But I think America would have had less capacity to weather it because our stuff is sort of finding new markets for raw resources is not very difficult. The major issue is that Canada needs to is that a lot of the reason why America gets really, really cheap oil from Canada is because Canada doesn't really have the oil infrastructure to export it to other countries cheaply. So the whole point of that pipeline that goes to the West Coast was so that we could trade more of our oil to China instead of the United States, mostly to increase production. But because it turns out to be cheaper to just sell it to the Americans for cheap, because then it goes down the pipeline and we don't have to worry about shipping it anywhere. Than it is to put it on trucks or trains and send it to the coast and then go out on a ship to go to China or whatever. So who knows where things are going to go after when tariffs get involved. That was a long way to talk about the whole trade war thing. But yeah, Canada would have been, I don't know. Canada would have still had a really bad time. We would have still had a pretty deep recession that we would have had to do a lot of economic rejiggering to sort of get ourselves out of. Homemade hummus is so good. I agree. There's a group in Ottawa looking for volunteers that helps migrants get settled in Ottawa. I'm going to have to see, so I don't overcommit, but I'm interested in helping with that. Ooh, interesting. I wonder if they are sort of part of the same organization that I work for. You ever tried Humankind? That game seems interesting. I did not. I thought, because there were two kind of coming down, two sort of like civilization likes that were sort of in production. One was Humankind and one was the one that Paradox is putting out, but I heard both of them were bad. Though I liked them because they were doing like the sort of civilization thing with like, instead of like the thing that I always hated about Civilization, where it's like, here is like, you know, the Imperial Germans in the Stone Age, and it's like, this is stupid. This story doesn't make any sense to me in my head. But I knew that the Paradox version of it was like more about like organically developing a civilization that was based more on like traits and like and stuff, that instead of like, you know, like it wasn't identifiable to like a specific civilization. And I thought that was cool. I have no idea about Humankind. Yeah. After many years of wanting to, you finally have the chance to join a D&D game, and it's very enjoyable. I agree. I think it's one of the most fun things that people can do. All RPGs. As a trans USA American, I feel so unsafe, and I think I'm developing agoraphobia. Well, I can't do anything to help with your mental health, except to say that, like, the second that and this is like terrible advice to give to somebody, but like, you know, the second that you are like, that is what they want, and if there's one thing that you should try and do is not give them what they want. All right. Saying switch to the USA with their product buying and such would be the worst than others. Yeah. All right, let's see. Scroll a little bit. Let's see. All right. Oh boy, lots of stuff happened. Okay. Love winter emo. I thought the cold air came in when my sister got back from work last night. It's bitter cold. Another W. You revived the Step Back Book Club. We're reading Anarchy Works by Peter Gilderloos, and our first meeting will be this Sunday. That is super great. I love that. My wife and I are doing some book clubs. We're reading, she's right now reading Let This Radicalize You, which I'll read afterwards, and then I am also working through Capital, because I feel like it's just an important thing to read. Yeah, now everyone's saying Neanderthal. All right. Still remember back in 2020, door knocking for an election, for a by-election. There was there for the NDP. It was a bougie neighborhood with big houses, so it was awkward to be like, "Yes, would you like to vote?" For the people that want you to pay more in taxes for affordable housing, for real. Like Ontario is in the middle of an election right now, and it's hard to knock on doors right now and then be like, hey, do I have to field this question about why the party that I'm advocating for won't let one candidate in Hamilton Center run? Because like right now, the NDP in Ontario seems to be acting like it doesn't want to win. They have made many calls that is like a choice to have a choice of party discipline over optics, and they seem to not want to be electable so much as they want to maintain Merit Stas's control over the party while they are in serious danger of getting bumped down to third place by a party that doesn't exist right now. Like, it doesn't even have legal party status. Fucking NDP. Always make it. Oh. So they're the most frustrating political party, I feel like, in history. Let's see. It's so weird to me that high occupancy lanes are a thing in North America. Yeah, I mean, they were meant to be a way to encourage carpooling and reduce the amount of not the amount of traffic and reduce the amount of, like, you know, car usage, but it's still like only on like big highways and stuff like that. Are these Soundcore Q20Is? They might be. I think they are. Yeah, I think we might have the same headphones. That makes sense. Let me do a quick check. I think that's what I have. It sounds right. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I like these. I like these headphones so much that I bought a. I bought a pair for my dad for Christmas. All right, let's see. Yeah, I've got. Oh yeah, here. I have Soundcore Life Q30s. If that's, I don't know if that's the same one. Are we doing weeks of the last week? You have a good W? Yeah, we're still kind of going through W's. What happens if you put cranks as sources in a history thesis? Depends upon how you're using them. You definitely will get your shit thrown out if you're using them as an uncritical source, but the whole thing about history and historical research is that you have to work a lot with sources that are contemporaneous to the events that you're dealing with, and you have to, you know, you don't get much choice in the quality of sources that you get on some things, so you have to find ways to make those sources useful anyway. Let's see. Food-wise, Canada would be better off than others. We have a lot of agriculture with a decent amount of productions. Yeah, we would just, like, we're used to a lot of shit that, like, we wouldn't get. Like, tropical fruits in the wintertime. Although a lot of that stuff we import from Mexico and South America, so maybe, yeah, there's so many things because the United States spent so much of its time basically getting rid of all of its, you know, domestic production and importing it all, because that's the whole thing about, that's the whole United States' strategy, is to have a high level of like to just be like the center of a trade empire. That's why, like, the whole thing that Trump was saying about, like, the trade deficit makes no sense. It's like, yeah, it's because, like, your whole thing is that you are, like, the banks and technology people. You're not the domestic manufacturing people. Like, the United States has spent the last, like, you know, 50 years moving all of its production to other places and focusing and doubling down on finance, service economy, and fucking technology. All right, let's see. Dark Gothic manga. How tech billionaires plan to destroy America. I'm not going to react to a video. I feel like I have stopped doing that for the most part, just because I get like copyright notifications on my like reaction streams constantly from the ones I did like years ago. And on top of that, like, it's like such a... It's not a type of content that I want to encourage. It's so low effort, and it is very much making content by mostly stealing the work of other people. So I just don't bother with it anymore. But I'll definitely make a note to watch it though. If it's what I think it is, it should be pretty good because yeah, it's basically like dictating the sort of like Silicon Valley, anti-democratic sort of Peter Thiel-esque ideology that is currently running the United States. So my guess is that's what it is, but I'm not 100% sure. They're basically, like right now, they're basically treating the federal government like they're a private equity firm, which everyone is kind of seeing right now. Your W recent weeks is that you've gotten the hell out of your hell apartment and recently started an internship. Hell yeah. Good stuff. If the Conservatives win the next election, do you think they'll abandon the idea of reciprocal tariffs? I don't think so. First of all, the chances of the Conservatives winning the next election are going down rather drastically for various reasons. Well, there's one really big reason, which is that the two things, I guess. There's a number of things. Let me just kind of say a number of things. Okay, so the conservative sort of pitch. So like this time, like last year, even this time, like 3 months ago, people were pretty convinced that this was going to be a an extinction level event for the Liberal Party. Trudeau's support was so low and so he was so hated by like every single part of the political spectrum that he had no allies left at all. And Pierre Poilievre, who's the leader of our Conservative Party, has been spending the last few years just constantly harping on two things. One, the lie that the cost of living increase is because of a carbon tax that a right-wing climate change program, which was to just tax carbon and then put it back into the economy. It was a thing that did not it was a right-wing conservative non-action to try and use nudges and incentives to address climate change rather than actual action. And it did almost nothing because all the money that was taken out went directly back into the economy through various things. But Poilievre had been fairly successful convincing stupid people in this country that the carbon tax was what was causing the cost of living crisis, which was brought about by Galen Weston needing to buy more helicopters and swimming pools, and using the pretense of the inflation that we had as a result of the COVID pandemic as, cover to basically just crank up prices on everything and then not lower them. So that he was getting a lot of success on that front. And the second was just harping on hatred of Justin Trudeau. If you don't live in Canada, it would be hard for you to really put through. But so much of the Canadian unhinged right, the crazy people, have this hatred of Trudeau that is so bone deep and psychotically powerful. People flew "fuck Trudeau" flags. Everything was focused on just hatred of Trudeau and the general conservative thing, which is just a general desire to destroy the environment by any means necessary. And that looked like it was going to be fairly successful because Trudeau was offering nothing in response to all of the myriad crises we were in. or was doing stuff like, hey, I'm going to kick our finance, or I'm going to force our finance minister to resign so that I can put in Mark Carney, a fucking private equity asshole, and make him, who's not elected, and make him part of sort of the cabinet so that we can do neoliberal shit to try and fix all the crises in a way that's not going to actually do anything. It looked bad. It looked super, super bad. It was so bad to the point where Trudeau had to announce his resignation. And as soon as a new party leader is chosen, which is going to happen next month, he's going to be no longer prime minister. And that changed. So in the time since then, Trudeau resigned, and so Poilievre can't just harp on Trudeau constantly. And in the Liberal leadership race, which seems to be coming down to two people, Mark Carney, the person who the said private equity ghoul that I was talking about, and also Chrystia Freeland, who was this, she was our finance minister, I believe, and she was also deputy prime minister for a while under Trudeau, and she very publicly resigned from cabinet and called out Trudeau as being focused on cheap political tricks to avoid the important things that'll need to be done to confront Donald Trump when he became president, because this was back in December, and that resulted in and of those two people in the leadership race, both of them have said that they're going to get rid of the carbon tax. They either citing that they want to use other methods to deal with it, or that they said it was just too unpopular. And both of them are just going to be a representation of the Liberal Party shifting even further to the right than they already are. Because that's just what they do. But it means that Poilievre's whole carbon tax and Trudeau insanity has basically died. So the only thing he had left to bank on was sort of acting a little bit like Donald Trump, and trying to use the Donald Trump energy in the United States and to activate conservatives in Canada. And then Trump started the fucking trade war. And in a way that I have seen people way older than me say they have never seen before in their lives, the threat of the tariffs on Canada has rallied the people in a way that is, at least as far as I can tell, nearly unprecedented. There is a wave of patriotism and national pride that has swept this country in a way that has never been seen before, in us rallying together and staying strong against threats from the Americans. Several provinces, I think almost all of them, have basically put an entire ban on selling American alcohol, because most provinces, alcohol is sold and regulated by a government organization. So they throw out all of the American liquor, canceled contracts. Well, that one got uncanceled, but they're doing a bunch of stuff to reduce our dependence on American goods and everything like that. And so the threat of the thing about the bullshit about trying to turn Canada into the 51st state has made Canadians fucking turnt, and they are so against this. I think the polls show that it is single digits popular, the sort of 51st state shit. And so Poilievre, who's been trying to cozy up to Donald Trump's way of things, and pushing taking our traditional conservative party, which was very not too into social issues, not really into whinging about DEI and shit like that, but talk tax cuts and stuff, and made it super fucking unpopular. And so right now there's even some articles coming out about how Poilievre is actually struggling to find messaging that'll actually work, and the Liberals have had a huge bounce back, and it looks like they might even win the election again this time. And if the Conservatives do win, it's going to be a minority government, which is, the pretty big deal. So will they abandon the idea of reciprocal tariffs? I don't think so, because the thing is, the reciprocal tariffs, despite the fact that they were going to be very hard for us, I think were extraordinarily popular. I don't think people have been so positive about Trudeau than when he announced the reciprocal tariffs. Like, we were all ready to fucking go. The only person who has been our sort of like our traitor has been the premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, who is basically like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but, you know, the premier of Alberta. And she is the one that was like, despite the fact that, like, you know, this is very unpopular even amongst her base in Alberta, has been still pitching like a more capitulatory tone towards Trump and his, like, you know, his, she's basically like talking about like doing appeasement and everything like that. And she's been fucking pilloried over it. Everyone fucking hates her now. Even conservatives hate her now. I don't know when Alberta's next election is. I think it's not for a while, but it could very well lead to an NDP victory in Alberta, which would be a surprise, but yeah, could happen. So I don't think that, I think Polyev, who basically doesn't actually do any real, like, leading as a prime. This is the other thing too, is that I think that Trudeau, doing those kinds of things, taking these calls and the speeches he made, also showed something that we hadn't really seen in a little while. Cause like Canadian politics, had kind of fallen down and Polyev is very much like a leader in this, had very much like abandoned, you know, politics and governing and instead was focusing on sort of like cheap, you know, like performative bullshit, like what happened, like which is basically all of American politics. Like American politics, they don't actually talk about, you know, running a country or you know, programs or policies or anything like that. It's just like sloganeering and culture war shit. And Polyev was trying very hard to bring that to Canada. And I think that Trudeau, in his like, and like, you know, I'm no like Trudeau fanboy, just so you know, but like Trudeau in like having that like sort of really intense speech after he announced the reciprocal tariffs and like dealing with Trump and stuff like that, showed that like, oh, maybe we want our leaders to actually know how to like instead of like them being like, this is the person who says slogans that I like, instead focusing on like, you know, leaders who have substance and who actually are like competent to do the sort of nuts and bolts day-to-day job of like running a country. And so I think there are a lot of Canadians who seem to be very swayed by that and realizing that like Polyev has nothing. His entire, like, he's shown no desire to actually have that kind of like, you know, like he's shown no sign that he is anything but a sloganeer. And that seems to be really like hurting him. And so I don't know. I think we could actually see that Trump could resulted in the Liberals coming back from almost death and coming back into power, and we're gonna have either Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland or Prime Minister Mark Carney. Although I do think, I haven't checked the polls in recent times, but I do think that it's looking like Mark Carney, I think, is going to be the winner, which will suck. But, you know, it's better than having Pierre Poilievre as Prime Minister. Because the thing is, the whole thing was that the election was all about the fact that people really hated Pierre Poilievre. Like, he's extremely unpopular in this country. But people really didn't like Trudeau and disliked him even more. And getting rid of Trudeau and replacing him with someone who people either don't know about or have, like, you know, lukewarm, you know, positive associations with, like Chrystia Freeland calling out Trudeau and like kind of like usurping him would go over very well with the Canadian people. And so, yeah, I think that that was a long way to answer that question. All right. I'd like to thank Doug Ford for calling an early election, so now I can make money as a poll worker almost back to back this year. Yeah, there is that. We're right now in the midst of a snap election that is very much feels like the election we had in 2021, which is like Parliament's not going to change a whole lot, and everyone is like, why is this happening? Why are we doing this? Oh, it's because if the Conservatives win in the federal government, Doug Ford knows that Ontarians tend to like their liberal leaders when there's conservative governments, and conservative leaders when there's liberal governments. And so he was trying to get in before the election and before all of these corruption scandal reports that are going to be about him in coming months really come out, so that would ruin his chances. Yeah. It's a really dumb election. I hate it so much. Let's see. If you consider that Danielle Smith isn't selling enough oil to her fellow fascists, yeah, for real. Let's see. Polyev wants to kiss the ring so bad. Yeah, that's the thing. Western Canada has a lot of oil refineries for the local market. I believe Irving Oil at the East Coast makes gasoline. Okay. So Canada's got wood. Canada's got so much wood. We are one woody-ass place. Keep in mind, like, Canada is, like, British Columbia alone, but, like, the Canadian interior is full of, like most of, like, the land mass of Canada is, like, nearly uninhabited. We have huge areas of land that are under federal management and have basically, like, nobody living on them. And so, and the federal government leases, like, you know, forest lands to logging companies. You know, they'll, like, lease an area to a logging company, they'll harvest it for a while, then they'll back off and, like, wait for it to regrow, and they'll lease out other places. And so, like, the Canadian government, like Canada has so much lumber land, and, like, we produce so much fucking wood. It's insane. And it's like, yeah, and almost all of it goes to America. Sweet and sour oil sounds like cooking oils, yeah. Alberta has tar sands, oil seeds, so that they have more traditional oil wells as well. Yeah. You worked in oil and gas training and safety. Yeah, so you know about this stuff. Hey, buddy, been a lot of awful happened since you last left. Yeah. Shit's real bad. We got a lot of work ahead of us. All right. Let's see. I did the thing where it snapped down to the bottom again. I have to scroll up to where I left off. All right. Yeah. All right, here we are. I'll just add that NAFTA means oil in Serbo-Croatian, so fitting it all about that. Yeah. Never made sense to me either. NAFTA, or naphtha if you are Anglophone, is a in-between oil product used in the production of gasoline. Yeah, interesting. Hello, Alexander. Hello, AL. I remember humankind's main gimmick is you can swap civilizations as you develop. Like, you can start as the Aztecs, but then level up into feudal Japanese-style society. That's kind of neat. Here, reading the Driz books. I'm actually reading right now. I am reading I just finished reading The Space Between Worlds, which I had not heard of before. It was recommended to me. Which is sort of like a book about multiversal travel that I was actually surprisingly happy with. And right now I'm reading Fire and Blood, which is sort of honestly like a history textbook. It's written like a history textbook. And it's really great because I don't need to remember a whole lot. It's just sort of like content that can wash over me where, like, you know, I'm lacking in a lot of brain space right now. So something like that is fun. Legal party status just means you have enough seats to be allowed to given time to speak on the floor. Yeah. Hey, Tarbox, you turned 40 last month. Congratulations. That's 40 more years than a lot of people get. So congratulations. It's a victory. For still doing wins, you got 3. You were able to run 3 times a week for the past 2 weeks. Fucking awesome. Been wanting to break into the Pokemon competitive scene for years and had your first tourney this weekend. Is that Pokemon the game, like the video game or the card game? I don't actually know if... I imagine that the Pokemon video game still has a competitive scene. And the card game, I think, definitely does. But, yeah, that's cool. I would love to get into something like that. What's it called? One of the things that I have been, like, really heavily debating is getting myself a 3D printer, and I bought a bunch of stuff for, I invested in Trench Crusade, the sort of the new tabletop war game that just got on Kickstarter. And I bought like the book and like the STLs for Warband in there, and I'm excited to put it together because I would love to. I want to get good enough at a game that I'm actually like I can actually compete in it. That sounds like it would be really fun. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that. I feel like I'm too old to have the time for mastery of something like that. But yeah, that's really cool. I love it. It's the thing I've always wanted to do. Me and my partner had a wonderful time playing Power Wash Simulator. Oh, my wife loves Power Wash Simulator. My version of Power Wash Simulator is Shipbreaker. I don't know if anyone's played Hard Space Shipbreaker is the name of the game, and I've been playing a lot of it these days. And it is it's a game where you are basically like scrapping spaceships. But it's got like a bunch of like interesting stuff because like the company you work for has like keeps pushing you harder and harder and has lax safety laws. And so like you have to like learn how to safely disassemble ships as fast as you can. And like I don't know, it's very nice. It's very fun. It's about Peter Thiel and Curtis Yarvin's long-term plans. Yeah, that makes sense. That is an important one to watch because that is basically what you are seeing happening right now. All right. What's your final tier list ranking for Biden now that he's out? Ooh. So yeah, I guess like, what's your final? There's Biden's going to be a hard president to talk about in like legacy terms because the fact that he was like the Democratic president between 2 Trump administrations is going to really, no pun intended, it's really going to frame his administration. Like he, I think what will like the big like first of all. The big thing that I will say is he's going to be known as somebody who was insufficient. He was sort of like I mean, depending upon how the future goes, but my guess is that he might be known as like the last sort of dying gasp of a sort of way of doing politics in America that was wholly inadequate for the challenges that were in front of it. So he'll be like remembered kind of like in the way that like Hoover, like President Hoover, or in Canada, Prime Minister Bennett were, where they had a massive challenge that really was really like a cut to the core of their entire ideology. Like their entire ideology was shown to be completely bankrupt, and in doing so, it had caused massive like devastation to their countries, and they were trying to solve problems that their ideology had caused using the limited scope of their ideology. And I think that Biden will be known as like the last attempt for like sort of like 1990s neoliberal. Like I think in the like right now, what we're going to see in the world is is a, unfortunately, it's going to be a shift to the right, but it's going to be a dismantling of sort of this center, like neoliberal sort of World Economic Forum sort of like Davos based world order is sort of collapsing. And what comes next has not really been written. Like right now, sort of far right nationalism is the thing that is taking hold around the world. Although Donald Trump being such a disastrous president might actually stem the tide on that. Who knows? We'll see. The time will tell. But Biden, I think, will definitely be remembered as like the last gasp of that kind of politics. So I don't really think that like a Democratic president who, like, I don't know. I mean, we could see it limp on for another thing, but really, like, there's really nobody left to carry that banner anymore. Biden was like the last, like, sort of his generation of potential presidents, really. And so he'll be known as, like, you know, the person who, I think he'll be known kind of in that sense. On top of that, though, I will say that there is going to be, and I don't think he's going to be remembered for it, but there is some credit that he needs to do, which is even, I guess, what little credit he does get is stuff that is going to be completely erased by the Trump administration anyway. So it's almost not worth mentioning. But like, Biden did, at least tried during his presidency to do the most comprehensive climate change bill that America had ever seen. That was, at the time of its passing, pretty impressive for America. The problem is that it's going to be completely undone by the Trump administration, because again, he was trying to do ambitious things, but he was still coded in the ideology that he existed in, and at the end of the day, it didn't work. He also made it a lot easier to. Here, this might be like the one thing that Biden's got going for him, is that he did pass laws that made it a lot easier to form unions in workplaces. And as a result, America's unionization rate went up by a pretty good amount. And I do think that in the years to come in the Trump administration, that one of the places that we're going to be able to organize an effective resistance to his policies is going to be in those unions that were set up by the Biden administration. Whether that, or not set up, but like, you know, given an easier time to establish themselves. We'll see, you know, time will still tell on that. But other than that, Biden was very much was not enough. It was like, he'll be remembered kind of like the late Soviet leaders, right? Like that, like, didn't rule for very long, didn't really do a whole lot. They were sort of like their job was basically to do what's called hypernormalization, which is a really good term that I think I'm going to talk about a bit more in a video at some point, which is that when the Soviet system was falling apart, there was you had generations of people who had, like, you had a whole generation of people who are now kind of in charge that had only known the Soviet Union growing up. And they were seeing the system falling apart and failing. But they knew that they couldn't really imagine it ending because they had never really seen anything before it. And so there was a strong urge to hyper focus on like making things seem like they're fine and make things seem like they're normal and that we can get through this. You might have seen like Ezra Klein's latest New York Times piece is kind of an attempt to do something like this. And I do think that to the American, like to the United States as like a liberal empire project up until like now, I think that we are kind of like, I think that we're seeing kind of this for the United States. Like, I think that in not good ways, I think that there's a way that Donald Trump is sort of like Boris Yeltsin or like Gorbachev. Not like Gorbachev. Like Gorbachev, no, that seems unfair. But he's going to be like the leader that oversees a collapse and is a result of a system that was that had been collapsing for a long time. And I think that Biden sort of fits into like that. He attempted to he even ran on like bringing things back to normal. The pandemic fundamentally changed the power balance in the world, let alone the United States. The wealthy had grown their wealth by so much that it had like completely reshaped the way that the economy functions, and yet Biden was so desperate for us to go back to a pre-2020 mindset, and it was just not in the cards. And now we're seeing that because those people who benefited from all of that upward wealth mobility, like I think that if anything, the Trump administration is like at this point an example that like there was a point where like, you know, the corporations were very powerful and the government did whatever it could to fend them off, to like, you know, like make them happy. And now I think that corporate, like, you know, sort of bourgeois power realizes that it has more power than the government, and now has basically usurped it. And they're going to be kind of like merged into one thing, i.e. fascism. That's what fascism is corporate power and the government sort of becoming one. And the last time this happened, tens of millions of people died, and the result at the end of the day was the surviving ideologies were a sort of like Keynesian liberalism and communism. At the time that those wars broke out, Keynesianism was kind of on the growth, but didn't really like have like the power to hold it together. And then it became solidified by like, you know, the sort of Keynesian economics being the sort of key, you know, economic innovation that led to liberal parties really being able to defeat fascism. Same with communism. Like the idea was that the communist planned economy was like the only thing that was able to muster the power to defeat fascism. I don't know what the other, like, because like the thing is like the ideas of the future, the things that are of what comes next are always there. They're somewhere. Somebody has already thought of what the major thing is. It's just going to be like either in an obscure area, it's going to be like a sort of marginalized type of political power. It's going to be either like a thing, like the ideas that come to mind immediately as like the ideas that are lying around that could be a challenge to fascism are a sort of like mixture of communism and that sort of Keynesian liberalism, which is sort of like a Chinese style order, because China is like the only country that really seems to be resisting this like fascist turn, and is the, you know, it is like the most, it's very quickly becoming, if not already, the most powerful economy on earth. And that might end up being like the sort of like ideology that opposes this order. And when it ends, who knows where things will go. But that is like the sort of like, that's the sort of when these kinds of moments happen where like a dominant ideology falls apart and you have a new one, you kind of have to look for like what ideas are lying around and how they might advance. And that's the only thing that immediately comes to mind. Because I think that a lot of people are going to see China's style of doing things and realize that that is like the that is like one of the successful models to running a country. The other, I guess, being these like, you know, right-wing dictatorships that are falling, that are like, you know, in chaos, always in chaos and falling apart. And we'll see if like we'll see more countries sort of build themselves in a Chinese model. Who knows? And even if we want that, because, you know, that's not exactly a universally good thing, obviously. Let's see. I am thinking that yeah. Have you checked out a collection of unmitigated pedantry? He has a series of posts evaluating various Paradox games through a historical lens. No, but that does sound good. That's sort of like what I liked about the channel Rosencruz, who's like a YouTuber I really enjoy these days, who's kind of like talking about the like intersection of like interesting topics in like history and video games. Very good channel for people who like Step Back. You would definitely like Rosencruz, which means I imagine that you guys are all probably already subscribers. Do you see that Trudeau says he regrets not changing the electoral system a decade ago? Well, If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. I don't give a shit if he regrets it. He should have done it. He actively killed it because he refused to because one of the popular ideas was proportional representation, and that was what was the more popular idea amongst Canadians, and he axed it because he wanted ranked choice voting, because ranked choice voting is basically a recipe for endless liberal governments, and that's why he killed it. So, like, you know, whatever, like, Trudeau, put up or shut up is what I'll say to that. All right. Like, proportional representation is even, like, so much fucking easier to explain than ranked choice. Like, for us to be like, hey, you vote for a party, that party gets the proportional amount of seats in Parliament. Easy as fuck. It's the easiest goddamn thing in the universe. But then being like, well, you'll have to, like, put a rank from 1 to whatever of the candidates you like, and then we'll take, like, their first choice, but if no one's over 50%, we'll remove it and move to your second. I'm like, no! That's so dumb. Like, it's so, like, it's definitely better than what we have now, but it's so, like, can you imagine having to explain that to the general population? No, it's dumb. But it's if we are going to get electoral reform, unfortunately, it's probably only ever going to be through the Liberal Party, and so that's what we're probably going to end up with. Oh, hey. I see there's Sophie from We Have Always Existed, transgender, a real friend of mine here. She said, no way Friedland can win. Absolutely guts me to say as a leftist, but Carney might be our best bet. You're probably not wrong on that. People seem to really like Carney in a way that I do not understand because he's a fucking ghoul. He feels like just like Michael Ignatieff, but yet for some reason people are happy about that this time. All right. My kingdom for a decent NDP leader. Yeah. Jagmeet Singh has been... Oh, here's the other part that's... to talk about, like, the endless frustration that is the fucking New Democratic Party at every fucking level. Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the only left-of-center party in Canada, has been fucking non-existent through this whole thing. Nobody has asked him anything. Nobody has said anything. You know who has been interviewed over and over again by American press, by Canadian press, and is always on the phone? Fucking Charlie Angus, MP, NDP MP Charlie Angus, has probably been the most vocal leader in support of Canada against American aggression through this whole thing. And you know what? Charlie Angus was a candidate for leader of the NDP back in it was 2017 when Jagmeet Singh eventually won the leadership race. And he lost. And it just makes me think like, oh, we could have had Charlie Angus as the leader of the NDP right now, and it would have been fucking amazing. I was in that race. I was a Nikki Ashton supporter, but Charlie Angus was definitely a close second, and I am so fucking pissed because I knew that Jagmeet Singh was a product of the Ontario NDP, which is like definitely like a good half step to the right of the federal NDP, and is probably one of the least effective political parties just in existence. And Jagmeet Singh has proven over and over again, because he has overseen he's overseen the NDP having like an absolutely precipitous collapse in its support across the country. Like, to even remember that in 2011 the NDP was the official opposition is just it's I hate it. I doubt that Singh is going to survive this election. I sincerely hope not. The NDP needs some leadership with some actual fucking backbone, and Nikki Ashton would be great. She hasn't done a whole lot to raise her status, and unfortunately Charlie Angus I think is retiring now. But yeah, goddamn. Wish we terped Singh years ago. How can you be in federal politics for a decade and still have piss poor political instincts? I mean, he's a New Democrat is the answer. The New Democratic Party seems like it actually does not know how to win elections, has zero concept of how elections work. It's wild. Oh, Smith is so fucking cooked. She managed to make Doug Ford look like a good guy. Doug Ford, yeah. God, Doug Ford, what a fucking enigma he is. So open, like Doug Ford is so like blatantly corrupt as a politician. Like, anyone doesn't know, Doug Ford, he's the premier of Ontario, the most populous province in the country. He's and he's a conservative, he's a progressive conservative leader. And like for he's so like, he doesn't have a political ideology. He doesn't care about anything. He is like, his literal entire purpose for being leader of the party is to help his friends make money. And everything that he does, all of his policy proposals have been about building Ontario infrastructure in a way that specifically helps his like very specific friends, like building highways to neighborhoods that are nowhere, building subway lines that go to like fucking Etobicoke, like just all of these things that have no fucking purpose whatsoever, and is just specifically to help his specific friends. And like his major policy proposals are like cheap beer and getting beer and liquor into grocery stores, and then now into convenience stores. And it's just like, why are we doing this? And yet he keeps fucking winning majority after majority because the Liberal Party hasn't just learned to fucking stay dead, and the NDP is like is shooting own goals like over and over and over again. It's just and yeah. And right now the Liberals are running like the former mayor of Mississauga, who like openly said she doesn't give a shit about Brampton. And it's like, oh, okay. Alright, we should follow Cory Doctor's advice. Instead of tariffs, we should enact right to repair legislation. Allow jailbreaking of John Deere tractors and Teslas. Wouldn't be against that. Right to repair is super important, especially as like a lot of our technology that is very expensive stuff that we like, use, like our relationship with a lot of technology is changing, especially when it comes to like heavy machinery, like cars and tractors and stuff like that. And yet we haven't like repairing a car is nothing like it used to be. And we should have legislation in place to make it easy to repair and fix your own things, because that sort of like aspect of like planned obsolescence and like shit like that is like it's such an easy, feels like it's such an easy fix, but it's just such like a blatantly dumb thing, and I hate it. It's so openly like even as like a liberal person or whatever, like the sort of planned obsolescence and like trying to use like contracts to stop people from fixing their own things, to make you either have to use a licensed repair person or to buy a new product, is so it's so blatantly like just making things worse to maximize profits, that like I feel like most liberals even would be like, why are we doing this? Why is this the way things are? Like it's like, it feels like an easy win. TBH, Freeland is the Canadian Hillary Clinton. No charisma, no ability to acknowledge her failings. Fair, and also a super like neocon warhawk as well. Like, she loves fucking war. Freeland. Ford was celebrating Trump's win until the tariffs were announced. Yep. Question of the thesis was because I was listening to a Cool Zone podcast about right-wing terrorists. Yeah, you're talking. I listened to that podcast too about the Holocaust denier who cited David Irving as a source, which was definitely a sign of a very, very bad thesis supervisor. All right. His family's full of chuds and Nazis. He likes Trump, even if he's not as ideological on social conservative stuff. Yeah. I hate Doug Ford is such like a fucking weird thing on our country. All right. I was just listening to It Could Happen Here before jumping on stream. Robert Evans talked about how asinine it is for people to make half-baked comparisons to Dachau and ignoring the U.S. context for concentration camps. Have you noticed that a lot of people, even on the left, have the habit of just treading history like prophecy, expecting it to just repeat one-to-one instead of taking notes and recognizing patterns within your own context? Yes, I agree. And this is like one of the number one things that like professional historians hate when it happens. History is history. I think so much so that even like the history subreddit actually flags when people say there's two lines. When people say that winners write the history book, and when people say that history repeats itself, you actually get flagged because those are two things that all historians will tell you is not true. And yeah, so like definitely like we should not be like, you know, comparing too closely and realizing that really anything can happen. There's not so much like you shouldn't like talk about history as like repeating itself point for point. What you should talk about is that there are forces that are understandable that we know push politics and push the world in certain ways that are understandable and can give us an idea of where things are headed. A good example of that is just understanding Marxism and political, like historical materialism and like that kind of stuff will give you a better idea of where things are going. And just like other ideas, like that stuff I said about like how ideas never go away. Like I'm kind of like, maybe this is like a thing that I need to like write something more formal about, but like like conflicts never end. Ideas never go away. We need to kind of stop thinking in like the idea of those kinds of narratives because like, you know, like the ideological space of World War II never ended. The Nazis, there was never a time after World War II where there were zero Nazis. And like, you know, like settler colonialism in Canada never, and like North America never went away. We are still doing settler colonialism to Indigenous people now, and Indigenous people for an unbroken chain going all the way back to, you know, 1490 or 1492 have been fighting for their own, like fighting for their independence and trying to maintain their way of life nonstop. And like for another example is like neoliberalism, the ideology that's sort of crumbling right now is actually just a reboot of classical liberalism, the sort of ideology of the Victorian age. And when the New Deal sort of Keynesian system went into place, they never went away. They just retreated into more niche spaces until their opportunity to advance themselves came again. And so like, I'm very much under this idea that I'm grappling with two ideas that I'm trying to figure out how to like put into like words, which is like, one, conflicts never end. It's very, very rare that an ideological like debate or conflict ever 100% ends. And two, that like it's extremely rare for people to fundamentally change their mind, and that there is no there's sort of this liberal idea that we can like win political victories by just convincing enough people to do X thing. And I'm learning that it's actually very hard, if not near impossible, to actually get people to fundamentally change their mind. There's this whole thing in academia where like a lot of ideas, like a lot of like, you know, theories and like really difficult, and no one has really found a good way to do it to get people to actually change their mind. This is why like every time I'm super sus whenever like a far-right media influencer all of a sudden turns to the left and everybody like forgives them and is like ready to like embrace them full-heartedly, because it's like every single time it's just been like, it's just a matter of time before like their shittiness just bubbles up to the surface again. Do they do spaceship versions of those guys in India who just plow old ships into the beach and strip it for metal? Yeah, they like what's it called? That is actually like directly, it says even in the credits of the game, like that is their inspiration, was those people. I saw Biden described as the dash between 45 to 47. Yeah. Hello, Rebecca Robinson. Thank you. I gotta try to get caught up. We have less than 10 minutes before the stream ends. Let's see. Very much, I do think that, like, we're kind of going through like the Biden thing. I do think that Biden will be probably seen as a bit of an anomaly. Like, the only reason why Trump didn't get reelected was because of the pandemic and how uniquely poorly he handled it, and that Biden would not have won otherwise. I think that's very much the case. I also think if it wasn't for the pandemic, I think that Biden wouldn't have even been the candidate. I think that we would have had a very different history. If I don't know if this is like, this is just purely speculation on my part and very much like my gut feeling, not like based on, you know, in-depth research or anything like that. It was more from my experience of being inside of a campaign. But like, when the pandemic happened and the Biden administration was like pushing for primaries to keep happening, or the Biden, like, you know, team was pushing for primaries to keep happening despite the fact that like the pandemic was happening and people were like in lockdown and all sorts of stuff, it led to like, you know, multiple new cases and outbreaks and stuff like that. While when I was at that time, I was a Sanders campaign volunteer, and we were using all of our like texting and outreach stuff to help people with like safety stuff, like how to be safe. Here's how to, like, you know, protect yourself from the pandemic, like that kind of thing. And when the pandemic hit, the Sanders campaign had a huge amount of momentum that was stymied by the pandemic setting in, and also the, like, you know, rat fucking with the Democratic Party did. And I do think that if it is very possible that if it had not been for the pandemic, Sanders would have been the candidate and he would have fucking destroyed Trump. But if it had been Biden, Trump would have probably just gotten reelected, honestly. All right. So you don't think fascism can just be dominant indefinitely because it's too unstable? Yeah, it is. It is too unstable. It is a self-eviscerating ideology, because at the end of the day, just like with capitalism, it has internal inconsistencies because it is capitalism. It has internal inconsistencies that like you can't, like, fascism is so based on momentum of the idea of colonial conquest, the idea of having a targeted enemy that needs to be destroyed, that when those are no longer a thing, like when you have no places to expand to, when you have no people to target, they will eat themselves alive. Like fascism has never, like, fascism can barely survive like a decade, let alone, like, you know, like the centuries that capitalism has been around. It's like capitalism on, like, fast forward. Fascists are bad at risk assessment. They benefit from people being too scared to risk conflict with them, but eventually they get themselves into an unwinnable fight because they underestimate the danger. Yep. All right. If you want to catch the live part of the stream, all right, let's see. The NDP keeps hiring constituents who worked with the Hillary Clinton 2016 campaign. Oh yeah, it's fucking dumb as hell. They literally keep trusting the word of certified centrist losers. Yep. Armchair Historian did a video about Operation Valkyrie, where he concluded that probably wouldn't have ended the war, and it probably would have turned Hitler into a martyr for the German right. I mean, that's speculation, right? You don't know. Angus is just not running for his seat again, but he apparently isn't full on retiring. At least that's what Steve Boots said. Okay. Well, I don't know for sure. Steve Boots is a mutual of mine on Blue Sky, which is pretty cool. Do I think the idea that I mean, it could be true. It's just like we have no idea to know. I don't know. Like it would be. I don't know. I don't know how I maybe this is just me. Like, I'm getting like all opinion-y all of a sudden, but like I don't know if I'm like totally bought into this idea that like don't kill the person who's actively doing the bad thing, because that'll just turn them into a martyr. Because I don't know if that actually, like, I can't think of a historical example where that actually happened. Killing the leader of a movement with momentum has a decent history of actively, like, killing the momentum for that movement. Like, the death of Martin Luther King was a massive setback for like the civil rights movement. Him being a martyr didn't do anything, or at least it wasn't like this like thing that like that just made it worse or anything like that. Like, I do think that those kinds of things are like, yeah, it's a whole thing. The rat fucking and ladder climbing careers at the NDP convention I was a delegate at was part of what fully radicalized me into anarchism. Yeah, I was in the sort of NDP of Toronto Centre was very similar story, in my experience. The current context in the U.S. is much closer to present day Russia than Nazi Germany. Yeah, I would say that like if I was looking for like a historical model to look at like the kinds of things that are happening in America to like, you know, kind of just crib ideas about where things might be going, it's like late Soviet Union or early Russia. I do think that those are a good place to look. Someone in a server I tried pushing this book, a history existing in cycles. Now Trump and Hitler are just part of the cycles. Yeah, it's no, none of that stuff. There is no cycles. There is no theory. There is no like things. Things just kind of keep happening. Things might happen in a similar way for similar reasons, but you can't really, it's really hard to predict. You can't really there's so many like, there's so many factors at play that it's impossible to really make a verdict on things. Yeah. All right, so let's see. The rat fucking would have happened regardless of COVID. Yeah, but I do think that Bernie Sanders had like the enough momentum that he could have, that the rat fucking wouldn't have been able to work. Like, I do think that there was like for example, I do think that the Joe Biden, like everybody rallying behind Joe Biden thing wouldn't have happened if not for the pandemic. Like, I think there was like nobody really wanted Joe Biden to be the candidate. It's just that they got desperate. Because I do think that like trying to make Pete Buttigieg back off the race, trying to make who else was the big candidate at that time? Amy Klobuchar, like back out of the race. Like, I don't know. I feel like there would have been a better chance anyway. And Bernie was like keep in mind, like when the pandemic hit, Bernie had already won. Like he had gotten more, like the Iowa caucus was bullshit. But he did like get like at the end of the day more like votes. He won the New Hampshire primary. He like absolutely smoked the Nevada primary. And like, yeah, so like you're not gonna like, I think that will be, I think that there was a lot of momentum that he could have used to win over the top, if not for the fact that the pandemic just killed everything and people were afraid of new and wanted to really clamp down and go safe. The right came to view Hitler as a martyr, but yeah, did that but Hitler dying and like, you know, the Nazis losing was definitely a huge damper on like the ideas that he was putting forward. It took like 2 generations for it to come back, and I don't think that, you know, fascism came back because Hitler worked as such a great, like, you know, like martyr for their movement. I think that in very much, I think it's despite it. I think that as fascism moved away from sort of Nazi era nostalgia, they actually did better. You think the Dems would have tried sabotaging the race just to spite the left if Sanders won the primaries? I don't know. The thing is, I'm not going to speculate on that. I don't know where things would have gone. Anyways, it is after 1 o'clock. This has been a really cool, intense stream. You guys are amazing. I'm going to go do some other stuff now. But yeah, take care of yourselves. Very, very important thing. I feel like more important than ever at the end of the stream to say. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And, you know, batten down the hatches, because we've got a lot of work to do, and you're not off the hook yet. Game's not over.